productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome again to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Today, we're going to be talking about the keys to being a great leader through role playing. In the dynamic world of leadership and management and learning and getting better at what we do, acquiring new skills is not just about understanding theory. I do not talk much about theory. Talk about real world elements of leadership and management. But I also talk about real world elements of learning and getting better and more effective at what we do. It's about practical application and role playing. And I can't believe I've never talked about this before, but we are. Role playing emerges as this crucial tool when we start thinking about it. It's the crucial tool in this context of leadership improvement. In fact, it's especially important when we're talking about leadership-related skills improvement. It's a method that's often overlooked, underutilized, avoided is really what it's more than anything else. But it's a method that transcends traditional learning. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. How do we learn? And how does role-playing fit into that? Because role-playing offers this unique blend of practice, feedback, and in the end, that all spits out confidence. It builds your confidence. So let's talk about how to unleash the power of role play. I want today to help you discover this transformative benefit in leadership training. And it goes beyond, effective role playing goes beyond just a simple exercise, especially an exercise that just takes place in your mind, in your head, because it really must be a rehearsal for real life situations. And by stepping into your own shoes, fully immersing yourself in a real world scenario, you will acquire the necessary skills to communicate and enhance whatever this idea that's going on in your head at what you want to say. It helps you enhance this idea effectively. And don't we all want to be effective? Please don't underestimate the significance of including crucial details and important structures that are crucial for success in whatever scenario you're going through. Take a minute and plan it and write it down. A lot of people aren't good at planning, including myself. That is not a natural born skill set, but it's one that I've had to introduce to myself and practice, because I know without writing down and practicing things out, and I'm just winging things, I'm not very good. I'm not as good as I would like to be. And just like actors and athletes who dedicate hours and hours to rehearsing and practicing, role playing in the realm of leadership and your leadership training builds that confidence, builds that skill set, builds that sustainability and repeatability, which is an essential trait for any business leader. And it also helps you. I know this was one aspect that early on, as I personally embraced the value of role playing, I was able to say goodbye to a lot of regretful afterthoughts about what I should have said, could have said, how I should have said it. But instead, through role playing, I was prepared. I was prepared. I thought about how they would respond to things. So I was prepared for my own response or how I would relate or react to that. I could respond thoughtfully and confidently. I knew it was coming. Instead, I was prepared to respond thoughtfully and confidently. Just like a batter is ready for the curveball, you will be too. And it allows you to embrace the opportunity to refine your vital leadership behaviors without the burden of overthinking. And so often, especially if we're just doing it here in our heads, we tend to overthink it, overcomplicate, or maybe underthink it. And once it starts coming out of our heads and out of our mouths, maybe onto paper first, we'll now be practicing in a safe environment versus practicing on an employee or with a customer. Practice in front of a mirror, or even better, with a trusted advisor, a cohort, your boss, a mentor, a coach. It's amazing the difference it will make in your skill set and how quickly you learn and be able to apply new skill sets with ease and effectiveness. And as you conduct your role plays, and you're going to start doing that, please start embracing this, start conducting your role plays. Ensure that you have access to the key points of your new skill. If you're, say, taking one of my courses, reading something out of a book, watching a YouTube video, make notes, capture the key points that your new skill needs to include. And as you complete each role play, either give yourself a score, an audit, go back and give yourself a test on how well you included the key elements that you're practicing. Even better is to have someone else give you the feedback. Get that 360 feedback. That's the optimum way of capturing and including the essential elements, when you've got somebody else listening to you and can give you honest feedback. To truly master and perform a new skill effectively, it's just not sufficient to rely on reading a book or watching a video. These methods, and I do them myself. I watch a ton of YouTube videos. I read a lot of books, read a lot of news articles, an hour a day. Every morning, I devote an hour to improving my knowledge of what I'm out doing every day. And it's very informative, and it gives me all kinds of new ideas, but then I've got to go practice them. An active practice, more importantly, receiving constructive feedback, are absolutely essential to developing proficiency and confidence in any skill. I often use the analogy of how I played golf for 20 years without a single lesson. And I was as average a golfer as you could possibly be. I was 102, 103 golfer. And a situation occurred in my life, and I was able to play more golf. I had more free time, and I was on the course more often, but I was in a city that I knew no one. So I was meeting all these strangers on golf courses and getting paired up with them. And how often I would get paired up with golfers who were much better than me. And I was holding them back, and that was embarrassing. That was just a blow to my ego. And finally, one day I said, you know what, I'm going to get some golf lessons. And I invested, I forget, several $100s, maybe $1,000, more than that. Or I forget what it was. It was years ago. And going to a pro, and I happened to find a very good golf teacher, and learning the proper way to swing a golf club and be better on the golf course to gain that confidence that I wanted. I didn't want to be holding up any more foursomes because of my inability to keep a ball on the course. And this teacher, although I've been introduced to role play early in my learning career as a leader and a manager, this teacher, golf teacher, videotaped every swing I took. And he'd correct me, and he'd videotape the next one. He'd tape me, videotape the next one. And then he'd sit me down in front of his laptop. He had a little table back behind the driving range, and he'd sit me down and he'd say, see what you did there? See what you did there? Oh, you hit it perfect. See what you did right there? And I could see it. I could talk about it. Then he'd say, now go back and do that again. Go back and do that again. And so through this practice and feedback, this feedback loop, and then practicing again, and feedback loop and practicing again, I got better and better to where now I'm shooting in the 80s. I'm shooting as well as anybody I'm playing with, other than pros. And I didn't play with pros very often. I took 20 strokes off my game because now I had the skills and the knowledge to keep the ball on the course. But most importantly, this was the big part of it. Most importantly, I knew when something went wrong, why it went wrong, and how to fix it through my practice and knowledge. That same issue comes into practicing as a leader. If I practice it, something's going to go wrong. We do not live in a perfect world. As you apply some of your new leadership skills that you're focusing on, things are going to go wrong. It's inevitable. And that's okay. Learn from those mistakes. I learn from my mistakes in almost everything I do. And especially when I was getting better at the game of golf. And it's important to aim for the highest level of skill possible. And if you're early in your emergence as a leader, especially in the beginning, because you don't want to pick up bad habits. But if you're a little further down the road of your leadership responsibility, you're further in your management career, it'll help you unlearn some of your bad habits. It'll help you practice yourself out of some of your naturally developed bad habits. Don't be embarrassed by that. But role-playing allows us to come to a deeper understanding of how we're doing it and what we're doing and how we sound. So let me get into why all this is so important. And it's how humans learn. Let's talk about how we actually learn. And this concept I talk about a lot with my students, my clients. It's often overlooked, mostly underestimated in the realms of business and management. The process of learning. And it's multifaceted. And it's best approached through a comprehensive framework of 4 key tenets of teaching and learning. Breaks down into 4 elements. We learn by reading, visual. We learn by hearing, auditory. We learn by practice, kinesthetic. But that kinesthetic learning and the 4th tenet, which is feedback, is very often completely left out of our learning as leaders and managers. We must see it, hear it, practice it, and then get that feedback. So when you're role playing, that's where this important, the best way possible is to have someone else listen, be your role play partner and give you feedback. Maybe the 2 of you can be learning together. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe it's a co-worker who's very good at this. Maybe it's a recording. Maybe it's a Zoom that you're recording yourself on. So you can watch yourself. That's humbling, but you can watch yourself, hear yourself go through your role play and your practice. You have to have that feedback loop. Reading it's a fundamental aspect of learning. It allows you to absorb information at your pace, and you can revisit it and go back and make notes, and you can build a theoretical foundation of whatever you're learning. And you can engage in various perspectives and ideas, and it certainly expands your knowledge base. A lot of people like it because it's self-paced. And it really truly is crucial for a deep understanding of subjects. And the more you can read about something, the better. And almost every time I read an article or read a book, I'm enhancing my vocabulary. I'm improving in some comprehension skills. It helps me with critical thinking, which is indispensable. And then my time spent on YouTube, which is significant because I'm a learner. I love to learn. And so not only am I seeing it, but I'm hearing it now. And through this auditory learning, I can absorb this information. I'm listening and absorbing information. And I'm doing it through TED Talks, lectures, discussions. And I'm also learning when I'm just sitting around listening to others. I love to people watch and be a listener during discussions. I like to tuck myself back and just absorb what everybody's saying. I encourage you, if you're not one of those people, to do that. I've learned so much by just shutting up and listening. And auditory learning is particularly effective for those who process information better when they hear it. We can be very auditory learners. It allows learners to grasp nuances in tone and emphasis, tonality, modulation, pauses that you can't pick up in written communication. Then most importantly, and I'm not bragging on myself, but I'm telling you how I learned, and I certainly don't know everything and never will, but I got better and better at different aspects, both in my career and in my business, through practice. Practice is the part that generally we hold back on, but we have to apply the knowledge. I can remember early on when I was learning to either podcast or market or that sort of thing, that I'd read it or I'd watch a video and say, yeah, that's what I need to do. But just putting it into practice, I was very hesitant. I procrastinated because it was new, it was different, it was uncomfortable. And that's where practice gets us into a discomfort zone, and we're not growing unless we're uncomfortable. But you got to force yourself into it. If you're going to get better, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. And that's where the practice is so essential. And it's often said that practice makes perfect. And certainly it's very true in learning a new leadership skill set. Through practice, this theoretical knowledge, listening to others, can be transformed into you and your practical skills. It's an active engagement with the material that will help solidify your learning. And it requires you to apply what you've read or heard. And it also allows you to practice and aid you in identifying areas of strength and weakness. It's funny when you get into role plays, especially in something based on your personality type, based on your disc behavior, If you're a high D, you're going to be overly blunt or too quick to the point. You want to control the conversation rather than listen sometimes, or sometimes if you're a high S, you're going to avoid anything that seems or smacks of being confrontational. If an I, I'm going to be overly verbose. I'm going to say too many words. I'm going to over talk the situation. I want to dominate the conversation. If I'm a high C, I'm going to be a little more introverted and more detail oriented. I may talk too much about the details of something. So this practice, if I know that's how I'm going to be, I'm looking for that. I'm trying to get that feedback. Am I being too detailed? Am I over talking this? Am I being too quick to the point? That's how we master a skill in multiple fields, but it's certainly in learning new leadership skills. And then we've got to get feedback. Feedback, the process of receiving information about your performance or the level of understanding or how you've applied it. It is the most important, outside of practice, component of the learning process. I've got to know how I'm doing. Because if I just practice and I'm not getting that feedback, I may be fooling myself. I may be giving myself points where they're not deserved, or I may be leaving out elements that I need to include unknowingly. And that's why either watching yourself on video or having a third party give you feedback, constructive feedback, timely feedback, enables you to adjust, refine, go back, try it again, go back and try it again, just like my golf teacher. Go do it again. And it is amazing. I tell people this all the time. There's something magical about the third time. 3, 1, 2, 3. First time you'll suck. Second time you'll be a little better. By the third time, you're getting it dialed in. So don't fool yourself. I'm going to role play one time. Oh, I'm good. No, you're not good. It is the very rare person who can get something right the first time. You got to get to 3, and it's generally 3, 4, 5. 5th time I go through it. So please don't fool yourself. I'm going to do this one time. I'm going to be good. Let's go do it. Practice it again. Practice it again. Get the feedback or give yourself feedback through some video observation. And it helps you as a learner understand whether you're on the right track. Most importantly, how to improve. In many learning environments, feedback loops are established to ensure continuous improvement. You've learned this way your entire life. Think about how you learned in school. You read something, you listened to your teacher, you took a test and you got a score to see how well you learned the material. That's how we learn. That's why we're taught that way. So I cannot overstress these 4 tenets: reading, hearing, practice, feedback, and how they work synergistically. And this creates a robust and dynamic learning experience. And most importantly, or very importantly, they cater to the different aspects in the way we learn. We all have tendencies one way or the other. And it ensures that the information is being absorbed so that you have that deep, effective, lasting knowledge acquisition. And then you're going to be gaining confidence. Practice gives you confidence. It's one of the most significant benefits of role playing, is that boosting confidence. And practicing a new skill in a controlled, low-risk environment allows you as an emerging leader, as a learning leader, to iron out your kinks before you hit the real world situation. And this rehearsal, this is crucial in building self-assurance, and competence, not confidence, but also competence. And then this feedback loop. Please try to find a trusted colleague or mentor because it's invaluable. And at the very least, videotape yourself. And we all have access to some kind of video software. And seek constructive criticism. And it needs to be honest. It needs to be somebody who's going to shoot you straight. We can learn alone through video. That's the least desirable, but it's at least desirable with no other option to get feedback. The most desirable is have a third party give you some feedback. It's the most effective way of learning and improving your skill set. And literally, I'm just going to give you a personal experience with role playing. Literally, in my 40 plus years of experience, everyone I've ever asked to role play is hesitant and feels goofy about it. And I can distinctly remember back in the 80s, the first time I had to role play in front of a group. Because my own self-esteem and my own ego were being challenged, and that created this resistance to role play. I was about to expose myself. And it made me very resistant to role play. And it's natural, it's just human. Because we perceive it as embarrassing. We're going to expose our weaknesses. But think about that. We're role-playing to improve a weakness, to enhance an aspect of a topic that we need to learn. And this goofiness, this potential self-esteem eroding issue that procrastinates us, is completely unwarranted. It's an unwarranted pressure we put on ourselves. And we have to get over it to become knowledgeable and proficient at anything. Recently, just this past week, I had the opportunity, I was working with the sales team of a company I'm contracted with, and we were preparing the sales team for an upcoming trade show. Really big. It was an industry big. It was the biggest trade show of the year. And they were new to trade shows. I hadn't attended them in the past, and they're really excited about going. And I was training them on how to be effective in sales at a trade show. I went through the training with everybody. They were all excited. Oh yeah, now we know what to do. I said, okay, now let's see. Let's role play it. To close out the training class, took the last 20 minutes or so. I said, let's role play. You two go off, you two go off, you two go off. Role play with each other, reverse roles, role play with each other. And they all went and did it eagerly. And this is just a great team. This sales team is just amazing in that they're just big sponges, always wanting to get better. It's one of the best I've ever worked with. And so they just spun right to it. But as we were getting feedback, they all said it. What did you think? How did you do? I felt really goofy. It's very uncomfortable. But here's what I learned. And here's what I redid. And I got better. And this is what I enhanced it again. And it got better. And now I feel much more confident in going in a prime. We were doing how to have a brief discovery session with any prospect I met at a trade show. How can I, instead of saying, what are you looking for? And I say, I'm just looking, actually engage them in a conversation, not be rushed, find out about them and their business so that you can actually engage at a higher level of professionalism in sales. I can do a whole podcast on discovery, but essential to selling. But now they were ready. And their sales manager, me as their trainer, we all felt so much better about their ability to go to this big trade show with a big investment with thousands of opportunities, that they were really going to stand out against the competition because they were now prepared to do it the right way. And it was certainly not a way they were going to do it without role playing and getting better at it. So we all have this initial hesitation. There's a sense of reluctance because it's discomforting. And we feel goofy. And we're skeptical about how effective this is going to be until you do it. I can tell you, back in my days at CarMax, we role played with our sales team 7 days a week. The first 30 minutes of every day before we opened a store, we had role play sessions. That's why CarMax's sales process is so effective. That's why they sell 6 times the cars anybody else in the industry does. Not because they have more cars, not because they have the best prices. They don't. It's because they have great, highly trained and prepared, confident salespeople. Not all of them, but they're working every day to get them a little better. Back to the sales team, this is the turning point. As the exercise progressed, they started seeing the value, and these preconceived notions of how their conversation would have gone turned out to be very different. It sounded different in their head than when they actually did it. It was very eye-opening to them. So despite the goofiness, despite the attack on their self-esteem, despite the fact that they were about to expose their inadequacies to their peers, it really helped them out. They left there with grins and high fives, feeling good about it. And you will too. Now, I'm going to share with you in the closing moments here some best practices for role playing. If you're doing it as an individual, first of all, sit down. Look at what you're trying to learn. Set some clear objective. Understand what skill or scenario you're trying to improve or learn on. Create a realistic scenario. It may be one that you're about to face. It may be one that you face often, want to get better at, but make it realistic. And the closer the role play is to the real life situation, the more effective it'll be. And after you role play it, reflect and adapt. After each session, take time to reflect on what went well and what could have improved, then go back and do it again. Include those improvements. Reflect again, do it again. Repeat the role play again. Do it at least 3 times. And if you are a leader and want to include this concept or this vital behavior of role playing with your team on something, here are some best practices for you. First of all, it has to be a safe environment. You have to encourage an atmosphere of trust and non-judgment where everybody participating feels as comfortable as they can, experimenting and making mistakes. It's okay to screw up. Say that. It's okay. You're going to suck at this until you practice this. And make sure you have predetermined, diverse scenarios for them to practice. Have a variety of scenarios that are real world, not to the extremes, not to the one-offs, but common, difficult scenarios. Pre-prepared that, so they're not trying to figure it out on their own. It's difficult enough for them to have to role play. Give them scenarios so they don't have to think up what they're going to be role playing on, what they're going to be practicing on. And then encourage feedback. Promote constructive feedback amongst the participants. Again, back in my corporate days, we would do a role play. And the first thing we would say to the person who was role playing, say, how did that feel? What do you think you did? What do you think you could have been better at? How would you change it to get better? And they'd respond to all that. Then we turn to the group that witnessed the role play and say, what did you think of Steve's role play? What do you think they did very well? What did Steve do really well? What could Steve have improved on? That's where they learned. See, managers, they actually respect the feedback they'll get from their peers more than they get the feedback from you. It's a strange phenomena, but it's true. I've seen it play out hundreds and hundreds of times. They really love that feedback from their peers. So don't cut them off from that. Don't think you're going to be embarrassing them in front of their peers. They're going to be embarrassed regardless. The more they do it, the less embarrassed they're going to be. And let me tell you, if you do this right and you do it often enough as a leader, your team members are going to be asking to role play before they do something. It is really interesting. This practice just helps them gain this confidence and skill sets. And it also helps them with their critical thinking and providing not only their own feedback, but giving feedback to others. So we learn also by giving feedback. And there's been many times I've seen a highly skilled person giving feedback that at the end of the feedback that they were giving someone else saying, you know what, I don't do that often enough, but I know I should. So they've actually helped themselves by giving that feedback. It's amazing. It is an amazing tool that's not in enough toolboxes and certainly not being utilized enough. So powerful. It's in your arsenal of leadership skill sets. It bridges the gap between theory, practice, safe space, learning and growing. By incorporating role playing into leadership training, you're going to enhance your team's skills. You're going to enhance your skills. You're going to build your confidence. You're going to build their confidence. And you're going to be prepared to face your challenges at a higher level than ever before. Now I'm just to give you a few ideas to close this out. I'm going to give you just a few ideas of some topics that you as a leader, emerging and learning leader, might want to be practicing on, because these are the ones I see a lot of people struggling with. Difficult conversations. Number one, difficult conversations. And you need to be understanding some perspectives. You want to be practicing listening, understanding, ask first, respond later. Don't go in with preconceived notions. Don't go in with biases. You're probably going to need some negotiation skills. So be thinking about how they're going to respond, how I'm going to negotiate myself through that. But most importantly, emotional intelligence. Because what will screw up a difficult conversation faster than anything else is your inability to manage your emotions, to allow whoever else is in that conversation to push your buttons and you to respond in a way that you should not respond. You want to be prepared. This is all part of that preparation and planning beforehand. I know it's coming, so when it comes, I can be calm. I knew that was coming. And I won't let it affect me in a way that's going to undermine what I'm trying to accomplish here. Difficult conversations. Number two, effective communication. Elements of effective communication are clarity, conciseness. You want to focus on delivering a clear and concise message. Active listening. Please, if you haven't listened to the podcast on leading with your ears, practice your listening skills. Being empathetic. Also, you want to practice spotting nonverbal cues. Understand body language, what it's meaning, what it's saying to you. Also, critical thinking. Number 3, critical thinking. And the analyzing scenarios. You want to simulate some complex situations requiring your critical decision making. And again, please go and listen to that podcast. You're going to look at risk assessment, who, what, where, when, how these things a risk, who are they going to benefit? How are they going to benefit? What's the downside of this? What am I not thinking of? What's going to go wrong? And also part of critical thinking is consensus building, involving your team members, collaboration in the decision-making process. As a group, you're much smarter than as an individual. Delegation. A lot of my students struggle with delegation. So first of all, let's practice task allocation. Let's identify what task you want to delegate. And then how am I going to empower whomever I choose to delegate to? And then how am I going to train them? What are the steps and the time it's going to take to train them? And then what are my follow-up strategies? All too often when we're learning to delegate, we have unrealistic expectations as to how quickly they're going to learn. So follow up early and often until they earn the right for less follow-up. So develop methods for following up without micromanaging. You want to ease off as they earn your trust. Emotional intelligence. EQ is huge. It's, according to, I think, 90-something% of the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, the one most important skill set that is missing from their leadership team. So practice your emotional intelligence, your self-awareness. Role play scenarios that help you recognize your emotions, how you respond. Again, remember, it's not what you say, but how you say it and how you make them feel. Tonality, body language. You need to learn to be empathetic. Every effective leader has a skill set around empathy. And you can develop that. It may not come naturally to you, but you can develop a level of empathy where you practice understanding other people's feelings, relate to them. You don't want to be necessarily sympathetic, you want to be empathetic. And then self-regulation. That's EQ, emotional intelligence. Self-regulation. You've got to learn to control or redirect your impulses, your disruptive impulses and moods. And I've told the story a million times how this was one of my biggest shortcomings as a leader. I received feedback through my direct reports, through 360 feedback. Let me get a plug in for 360 feedback. If you're a business owner, you're a leader in a business, and your company doesn't have 360 feedback as part of their regular review sessions, get in touch with me. Let me help you install that. Just like the 4 tenets of learning, that feedback is important. 360 is what was a major game changer for me. And I went and got the training, role played. I felt goofy role playing, but I had to learn to redirect my disruptive impulses and moods. Super important. Coaching and mentoring. All of you are probably really good at managing things, but how good are you at coaching and mentoring people? How well are you applying skills and time to developing your team through coaching and mentoring? And a big element of that is feedback delivery. And it needs to be constructive feedback in a way that's not going to be perceived as an attack. You need to practice that. You need to develop skills in guiding team members to their goals through questions, not through telling them how to do it, but getting them to tell you how they're going to do it. And you do that using a Socratic approach of open-ended questions. Another skill set. And then helping them with their career development. Role play with them. Role play scenarios with them that involves discussions, include them in discussions, role play the discussions with them to help them in their career development. Role playing these leadership skills that I've talked about today allows you as an emerging leader, as a learning leader, to experiment, make mistakes, and learn in a safe environment. That's crucial. And it's a hands-on approach to leadership development. And it will significantly enhance a leader's ability to handle real-world challenges effectively. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the Business Mechanics Show. If today's content resonates with you, then you're going to love what we have to offer. For those of you who are ready to take your business or personal career to the next level, we have an array of training and coaching services tailored just for you. From performance coaching designed to enhance your potential, to executive coaching that guides leaders to steer their ships towards greater success. Are you in sales management or looking to fortify your leadership acumen? Dive into our sales management training and coaching. Not only will it sharpen your strategies, but it will also provide you an ROI that's undeniable. Remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself and your team. For those seeking flexible learning options, we're excited to share our online and in-person management leadership classes. These aren't just your typical courses. They are meticulously crafted, ensuring that they align with your unique needs and aspirations. And the best part, prices start at just $47 per month, making top-tier coaching and training accessible for everyone. Your growth, both personally and professionally, can have a ripple effect, the one I call the transformational triangle of change. The skills you learn, the perspectives you gain, and the efficiencies you create can translate into increased revenues, more cohesive teams, and an enriched company culture. So why wait? The potential ROI on this investment isn't just in dollars, it's in the progressive future you're carving out for yourself and your organization. Thanks once again for tuning in. And remember, every business needs a tune-up every now and then. Let the Business Mechanics Show be your guide. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details on our programs and coaches. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Until next time, we're out of here.